Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will begin with chapter 48, verse 22. Yaakov has finished conveying his special blessings to Yosef and Yosef's sons. And now, in closing, he says to Yosef, Vani and I, Nosati lecha Shechem achad alachecha. I have given you one more portion over your brothers, that I took from the Amorites, with my sword and with my bow. There's a lot of discussion on the end of the pasuk. I actually want to focus on the beginning of the pasuk. The Mefarshim explain that what Yaakov was referencing when he says to Yosef, I've given you an extra portion, is this idea that the sons of Yosef each have status as their own tribes, right? In other words, Ephraim and Manasseh are two of the tribes of the Jewish people. Yosef, we don't talk about the tribe of Yosef. Ephraim and Manasseh are two of the 12 tribes, and they're grandsons, not sons. No other grandsons have tribal status, and it's more than the covet for the grandsons that they get top billing. It's presumably they're treated as two different tribes in terms of what they get, and etc. Anybody ever wonder what Yaakov's authorization was for this decision? Just an interesting thing to think about. It's a Washington kind of question to ask, by the way. I just want to say, but where did he get the authority for that? Is that Yaakov's decision? Is that God's decision? Is Yaakov conveying the word of God? What's going on? So Ramban on Pasuk Chaf Beis, Vani nosati l'cha Shechem achar alachecha. After he's blessed the children of Yosef, and he gave them each status as tribes, he says, Ephraim and Manasseh, Ruvain v'Shimon yiyuli. We didn't see this pasuk this morning, but he says to him that my grandsons Ephraim and Manasseh will be for me like my sons Reuven and Shimon, and that means he's giving them tribal status. So once that has happened, Chazar al Yosef. He comes back to Yosef and he says to him, look, I'm going to die soon. God should be with you in the exile to save you from all travails. And you should be, great in number. And God should ultimately return you to the land of Israel. Asher biyadi lase, says the Ramban, because this last pasuk seems to really be a little bit of a non sequitur. In other words, he's talking that everything should be well for you in all ways. He's already conveyed that the grandsons have special status, and now he says, and by the way, you should just know, I've given you an extra portion. So the Ramban says it's very connected, because he's saying the day will come, God will bring you back into the land of, God will bring your progeny back to the land of Israel. And in the land of Israel, I've given you that which I have the authority to give you, in the sense that I'm treating your family as two different tribes. What does Yaakov have the authority to give? V'hu chelek habechora, the portion of the firstborn. Lios chabo yeser alachecha miyom shalakachti osom miyad amori. I am giving you unique status to get more than your brothers. That's the normal thing that goes to the firstborn. I'm giving you 2 tribes worth of inheritance. That's double everybody else, right? So that I can do. So all of these words here are intended as mollifying Yosef and express for him. He's saying that for everything, his family will have status as 2 tribes. It has to do with the campings in the desert. It has to do with the donations of the heads of tribes, with the Mishkan, all of these things. His family will have 2 different divisions. And he's saying that you will have this firstborn right in the inheritance of the land of Israel. So now Yaakov is saying to Yosef, Asisi imcha kol hatova sheyacholti lasos lach. This is the most I can do for you. I don't have authorization for more than this. Le'es shayisi yachol lasos, and this is the time that I can do it. Ki ein bershus Yaakov ba'aretz rak shchem echad she'ein biyado ligzo me'echad mibanav es nachalaso. Yaakov wouldn't be able to take the inheritance of the land of Israel away from any of the other children. He can't take from one and give to another. He doesn't have that right. This is God's gift to his family. But the right of the firstborn, that's a different story. That he could give. And he's giving it to Yosef and Yosef's family. Now, just to address the obvious question, the Torah, of course, talks about the right of the firstborn as well. In our times, we would not say, actually, it's an explicit pasuk in the Torah, a parent does not have the right to take away the unique right of the firstborn. How that works with wills today is a whole different story, and there is a way to do it. But in terms of the basic Torah model of inheritance, a parent doesn't have the right to say, you get Bechor status. But of course, the Torah hadn't yet been given. So at this time, it wasn't an instruction to Yaakov that he had to give special status to Reuven. He didn't have to. It made sense to. And that's Yaakov's own discretion. So Yaakov has the discretion to give special status to Yosef instead. That's what the Ramban is saying. On the other hand, the inheritance of the land of Israel, this is God's gift to the Jewish people. Yaakov can't say who gets what. I mean, Yaakov can't take away portions from some and give to others. He can't do that. So it's an interesting idea from the Ramban. Let's go to the Sforno on Pasuk Chaf Beis. Vani hine nosati l'cha, behold, I've given you. Vani hine amnam lo avarti nachal klal kishenasati l'cha shchem achad alachecha ba'aretz. I'm not taking away anyone's inheritance when I give you this extra portion in the land. It's not like it's my land. If anything, it's either my offspring's land or it's my grandfather's land. In other words, I'm neither one. I'm not the one who's actually taking the land of Israel, and I'm not the one with whom the concept began. So I'm just somewhere in the middle. So who am I in all of this? Kinosati l'cha mashal kachti me'achi keshekanisi habachora mimenu ki lulezeh lo hayu la'achecha b'yerushas ha'avos kol kach chelek ba'aretz. This is really interesting. Again, it's far from the standard pshat. Yaakov the Sforno says that Yaakov is saying to Yosef, look, here's the deal. If I wouldn't have intervened and bought the birthright from Esav, our family's portion of the land of Israel, if at all, would be much, much less. So it's not a question. Who am I to decide how the land should be distributed? Are you kidding? If not for the purchase that I made, we would at least be sharing this land with Esav. Maybe Esav's family would get all of it. So the Sforno is saying something very different than the Ramban. You know, the Sforno basically seems to say that Yaakov is saying, I can do whatever I want with the land of Israel. Whereas the Ramban is saying Yaakov's hands were really tied, and this is the only thing he could do. Interesting discussion. Okay, let's jump ahead. Chapter 49, verse 5. Yaakov now has parting words for the different sons. This is, of course, referred to as the brachos that Yaakov imparts to his sons. If you take a close look at them, I don't think we would necessarily freely translate them as blessings. Some of them are blessings. Some of them are general comments, and some of them are even criticism. And one of the stronger one of the more famous criticisms in these verses is in verse 5. He started with Reuven. By the way, he criticized Reuven. Reuven acted in a rash way, the whole story with Yaakov's beds. Now, verse 5, he says to them, Shimon, he calls in Shimon and Levi, who are the next children in order. Shimon v'Levi achim. Shimon and Levi are brothers. Klei chamas m'cheirosehem. Their tools are tools of wrath. Maybe that's a decent translation. Verse 6, B'sodam al tavo nafshi. My spirit will not join with their secrets. My glory will not come into their congregation. Kiva apam harguish v'ritzonam mikushor. They killed a man with their wrath. With their will, they undid the ox. These are references to the story of killing the city, the residents of the city of Shechem. There's a reference here to what they did with Yosef in terms of wanting to kill him and selling him, etc. But what I really want to talk about is this first phrase, Shimon v'Levi achim. Shimon and Levi are brothers. Right? That's true. Actually, everyone in the room is brothers right now. Why does he specifically say Shimon v'Levi achim? It's a strange phrase when you think about it. So let's start with Rashi. First Rashi on Pasuk Hey, Shimon v'Levi achim, be'etza achas al Shechem v'al Yosef. That Shimon and Levi had a way of being on the same page, much more than their siblings. When it came to what to do with the city of Shechem, they were on the same page. When it came to what to do with Yosef, they were on the same page. Vayomru ish elachiv v'atol l'chuv v'nargeyu. You know, when Yosef is first coming to meet up with the brothers, it says in the pasuk, one of them said to their brother, "Oh, look, here's the dreamer. Let's kill him." Now, the simple way to read the psukim is they each turned to each other. In other words, that all of them, all of the brothers, each one turned to the one next to them and said, "Hey, look, it's Yosef coming." But maybe, says Rashi, it's a specific two brothers that one of them said to his brother, because that's the literal translation of the pasuk. A man said to his brother, "Mihain, who were these people?" Im Tomar Ruveno Yehuda Hare Lo Hiskimu Barigaso. It's unlikely that it's Reuven and Yehuda, because they, in different points of the story, tried to convince the brothers not to kill Yosef. So it's unlikely that they were the ones who initiated, let's kill him. Im Tomar B'nei Ashvachos Hare Lo Hisasinas Shlema. Remember, Leah had 6 sons. Okay, the other children were either Yosef and Binyamin. Binyamin was not involved in this at all, or the children of the maidservants. We know that Yosef actually had a warm relationship with the children of the maidservants. So it's unlikely that they were the ones suggesting that Yosef be killed. Yisachar and Zvulun were the youngest children of Leah. It's unlikely that they were, saying, "Hey, let's do this, let's do that." Presumably they would be more respectful of their elders. So who are we left with? Shimon and Levi. Shekarom aviem achim. It says, Rashi, is clearly citing a medrash, that this is the cross-reference. When Yaakov says to them, Shimon v'Levi achim, so the pshat in the pasuk says, Rashi, is Yaakov is saying, wow, you two, you seem to be in cahoots a lot together. But there's a cross-reference, whether or not this was his intent, but this is the beauty of the Torah. The fact that they're called Achim here is considered to be a revelation about which brother said it to who, let's kill Yosef. And we say that it was Shimon and Levi discussing the death of Yosef. So there's sort of a dual message being conveyed by Rashi over here. We will pick up tomorrow with the Ramban, God willing, to see another idea for why he's referring to them as brothers. So we discussed this morning what's Yosef's right, discussed the Ramban and Sforno, where exactly, what are his grounds to be distributing land in Israel in a way other than equally. And then we saw Rashi this morning about why Shimon and Levi are referred to as brothers.